So, Senator, let's start with your position specifically. As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, you initially expressed some skepticism, but then you were promised you would get a vote on some defense spending, and so you've come around. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct. I don't like continuing resolutions. I don't think they give certainty for the federal government, most certainly not for our Department of Defense. And this has been going on for too long. For 44 years, we've had a budget system that has not worked, and nobody's doing anything about it. I've been here now 3 years, and I just simply don't believe that we can continue to do business in a way that is not functioning correctly. So what I asked for was some way to resolve on a short-term basis the issues we've got right now, but long-term, a movement back into a regular order that both Republicans and Democrats could agree to. In this particular case, I asked for a vote on the appropriations, the defense appropriations bill, based upon what we have approved through the national or through our Senate Armed Services National Defense Authorization Act. It's called the authorized amount. That would allow the armed services to be able to move forward with their contracting, with their training, with their modernization programs. And even though we're already 4 months into the year, it would at least provide some certainty between now and the end of this year, and perhaps even into the following year.
So, Senator, you said to try to get Democrats and Republicans to come along, you need 60 votes. Let's talk about the situation there right now, because the counting that we've heard is something like you need 13 Democrats. Is there a realistic prospect of getting that many Democrats to come along with this continuing resolution?
I think under the current circumstances, I think this will probably be something close to what we call a game of skins and shirts, where Republicans will vote one way, Democrats will vote another. We'll get that out of our system, and then we'll start talking about where we go from there. I think Democrats feel that they've got a winning hand with regard to standing firm, saying they're not going to do anything unless DACA is brought into the picture. Republicans are saying that Democrats should be able to fund government, keep government going, and discuss DACA because we've got more than a month yet before we run into a serious issue. I think there's a middle ground here that could be broached, and I think it's going to take the president to be actively involved. As Senator McConnell has indicated, we really do need some certainty from the president to get the House on board. I don't think the House will come with anything until they know for sure that the president would sign it. And I think this is a real opportunity for some leadership to show up and to make a grand bargain.
So as you said, you have a month, maybe a little bit more, because as I understand it, March really is a deadline for those so-called dreamers. These are children who were brought to the country, have now become adults and are contributing to society. They've got something like a March deadline. That's not very long in Washington time as a practical matter. So what is your pitch to your Democratic colleagues in the Senate to say, trust us, we will take care of this within the next 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think it's more along the lines of, I think Republicans and Democrats see this as an opportunity to resolve not only the issues surrounding DACA, these young kids, but also to be able to get ahead of the issues surrounding the border security system. Get down to the point where we're actually all defining the wall in the same way, one in which we've got a secure border system, identify the amount of money that we need to make that border secure, and then talk about the other things that really are part of a good immigration system, a reasonable expectation for immigration, a reasonable opportunity for businessmen and women to be able to verify whether or not you're here in the country legally through a good E-Verify system. And then something else that a lot of people are trying to focus on right now up here, and that's the visa system, which allows individuals to come into the country, visit, work, and then go home again. That needs to be modernized. It needs to be brought up to date. In South Dakota, we use the H-2B visas in our tourist season, and there will be tourist industry businesses that simply won't be able to open up if we don't have those folks that want to come in and work during the warmer part of the year and then leave and go home again and come back again. They do that year after year after year. We have a shortage of that in the United States today. These are the folks that actually work in golf courses. These are the folks that work concrete and construction. These are the folks that work at seasonal industries. They actually help to keep those businesses open for other people to be employed year-round.
Senator, you're really describing comprehensive immigration reform, and I think most Americans would agree this should have been taken care of years ago. It's a high time we take care of it. But as a practical matter, there is very little prospect of getting that done in 4 to 6 weeks. So if we have to get comprehensive reform done before we can really deal with the dreamer situation, aren't you really saying, in effect, effectively, those dreamers are going to be deported?
No, I don't think so. First of all, both Republicans and Democrats recognize that we think these young people can be very, very valuable in our economy long term. There's a reason for us to want to keep them here. But with them also comes some challenges with regard to their relatives. Those individuals who illegally brought them into the country in the first place are relatives. And you have to be able to deal with how these young people who would be given a legal status here, one in which they're able to stay here and eventually be able to address the issue of citizenship, what happens to their ability to then allow their parents who did violate the law to be brought in as family members legally. That has to be addressed in this discussion. And that's one of the challenges we've got, because people feel very strongly you cannot incentivize additional people who are outside the country now to want to get their kids in for the same purpose. One of the reasons there is that's the reason why you've got to be able to upgrade the current immigration process. I think it's doable. I think it's fixable. And I really think the president wants to see it get done. But I think when Senator McConnell says there does have to be some certainty as to what the president would bless, and there's no reason to move forward until we've got an agreement there, so that the House, which is up for election this year, the entire House, until they're prepared to say, okay, the president's with us on it, it's okay for us to move forward.